Today, we are so excited to talk to you about the world of personalized learning. Personalized learning customizes learning for each student individually to assess their strengths, needs, skills, and interests. The personalized learning model is made up of an entire honeycomb suite, right? We are going today to dig into those three core components of the learner profile, a customized learning plan, and proficiency-based progress. Come on. The first thing that we're going to talk about is the core component of the learner profile. A learner profile checks in with the students to think about what motivates that student, what interests do they have, and perhaps most importantly, what are the connections they can make and where are they ready to start to learn at. The learner profiles should consider things like the demographics of the student, collecting a variety of data that kind of tracks with them to see how their strengths and weaknesses ebb and flow throughout their learning time. It also works with their tools and strategies and habits that the learners have already kind of embedded in them to help them to decide a career path or potential motivators, something that's going to hook them into the idea of forward progress, excitement about learning, things that they're interested in on their own. Really, to sum up the learner profile, the main purpose is for the student, the learner, to understand their own strengths and weaknesses so that they can essentially start to facilitate that learning on their own without a need of the teacher. How they do that is by using the customized learning path that Amy is going to talk to you about next.
The next core component in the honeycomb of personalized learning is customized learning paths. In this core component, students really take ownership of their learning. They develop a greater sense of pride and meaning in their learning and become increasingly independent in their learning skills. There are 4 main steps in this core component. Step 1, develop personal learning goals. Educator and learner come together to develop personal learning goals for the learner. The learning goals should be short-term, intermediate, and long-term. The outcome must be explicit and also aligned to the intermediate and long-term goal so that the learner has a clear path moving forward to reach their goal. Step 2, the selection of activities and resources to help support the learning. Both the educator and the learner have input in the selection of resources, activities, and tasks that will help the learner find success in reaching their goal. Step 3, identify progress markers. The learner and educator develop progress markers that will determine if the student is on the right path to meeting their goal. Markers are based on formative assessment data. Sometimes progress markers show that the student is not on the right path to meeting their goal. So the student and educator get together to make changes to the personal learning goal. And this is okay. Step 4, define how the learning is going to be demonstrated. Oftentimes, learners in the beginning will defer this part to the educator to come up with ways that they are going to be assessed or how they are going to show that they've learned what they needed to learn. However, as the student progresses in their learning goals and becomes more confident, they often come up with more rigorous ways to show that they have demonstrated their learning.
The next component is about proficiency-based programs, and we're asking ourselves, what are the students asked to master during this time? We always want to look at standards because standards can provide us clear goals for what the student should learn, and they will also help us plan the learning targets and expected outcomes. In this component, some of the things that we have to look at are what will the students learn, how deep their learning will be, and also how the learning will be demonstrated and measured. Remember, we're really focusing on mastery. We're not focusing on how much time the student spends learning. When we think of our proficiency-based programs, we have to remember that the learning doesn't always follow a single path. Sometimes the students are given choices on some of the following, like sequence, specific content, methods, resources, and assessment. But remember, the point is that the standards should be challenging and interesting, and they should prepare students for success later in their academic, professional, and personal lives.
When it comes to personalized learning, there are 3 more layers to briefly discuss. You can look at these more in depth in the article if you wish. We'll only briefly discuss them here. The next layer after core components is learning and teaching. In this layer, you'll find components such as learner voice, learner choice, and standards guided learning. Take a step back even further, and you have relationships and roles. This is where the relationship between educator and learner really are looked at closely, and you'll find components such as engaged families and community connections. The outermost layer is called structures and policies. In this layer, you'll find components such as flexible learning spaces and learning-based continuums, among many others. For more information, link the article and read more. We hope you enjoyed our presentation on personalized learning. Now stay tuned for our Kahoot to test your knowledge. Thanks.